25 facts about the original Star Wars Trilogy. You think you know it all. All there is to know about the first Star Wars Trilogy. Well, this is a new hope we're going to put to the real test. The Empire strikes back and challenges all self-proclaimed Star Wars facts experts. Therefore, if you really want to make your own Return of the Jedi after watching this video, you've to convince us that there weren't too many. Wow, this was a huge surprise, even for me. So, let's begin and hurry up before The Force Awakens for the 7th time. Number 1. There's no other way to begin our story about the original trilogy without the father of all Jedi Knights and entire Star Wars universe, George Lucas. Yes, Star Wars boys and girls, he's already earned himself an immortal status quite long ago. Yet his self-confidence about the first movie of Star Wars Trilogy was, at least to say, bursting with the force unknown to the movie industry and Directors Guild. Did you know that at the very day of the premiere itself, George Lucas enjoyed Hawaii with his Hollywood buddy Steven Spielberg, rather than to tremble in a movie theater side to side with the newbie Star Wars fan? To make things even more interesting and even harder to believe, that was the exact moment when they came up with the idea for the more timeless classic called Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981. Number 2. Yet it would be wrong to believe that all George's fellow directors were thrilled by his masterpiece. One urban legend has it that a prestigious group of George's director friends and colleagues had a unique chance of seeing the movie prior to its official premiere. For Brian De Palma's, this was the worst movie ever. One of the very few to share George's enthusiasm was no other than Steven Spielberg. He predicted the shiny future for the film, including productive and long-lasting friendships with George to this very day. Number 3. Who could have thought that George Lucas will become so influential thanks to his Star Wars movie franchise that he almost provoked the full-scale war? While filming in Tunisia, George was using massive military vehicles near the Libyan border. The Libyan government expressed its concerns with the direct threat of a large-scale military mobilization. Eventually, the Tunisian government had no other choice than to politely ask Lucas to relocate his Jawa sandcrawlers. No one thought of the Jedi cavalry, though. Number 4. George Lucas has done more than one unorthodox and unheard of things in the long and profitable Star Wars history. One of the riskiest ones was to give an advantage to the full merchandising rights over the traditional movie salary. Movie toys and other Star Wars products actually earned more money than the movies themselves. The trilogy was such an unexplainable phenomenon that literally anything with a Star Wars logo on it was an instant, tireless money earner. George risked it, George won it, George enjoys it. Number 5. Unfortunately, A New Hope ate all Star Wars hopes of becoming the first and only movie of its series to win a nomination for the Best Picture Academy Award. If it's any comfort, this was the first SF movie ever to get a nomination for Best Picture. Is this enough for you, George? Sometimes you just can't have it all, can you? Number 6. It's about time to mention some of the impressive figures. A New Hope was the first movie to earn more than $300 million at the domestic box office. When we do a little bit of math and inflation adjustments, then we get the second highest grossing movie in Hollywood history, which can only be outmatched by none other than Gone with the Wind in 1939. Number 7. Let's play the most favourite game of names for any Star Wars fan. What was the original name of the Star Wars main character, Luke Skywalker? Well, how about Luke Starkiller? George obviously had some second thought about it. So which one do you like more, Skywalker or Starkiller? The Star Wars Episode 7 director J.J. Abrams named one of the locations in the movie the Starkiller Base. We believe that we speak on behalf of all Star Wars fans who prefer to walk the sky. Although, killing the Death Star did seem like a necessary thing to do. Number 8. Let's move to another iconic movie name, The Jedi. If you think it's an easy one, we would like to hear your best guesses. Somehow, we know you aren't going to get even close. Jedi, the word and term, has so many things in common with the Japanese words Jidai Gekai. When we translate these unusual words, we get quite an unexpected result. Period adventure drama. What in a world is that? Well, this is a term which describes the Japanese TV soap opera set in the time of samurai knights. The story goes that George Lucas saw this samurai soap opera in one of the hotels while visiting Japan. He liked the word and the samurai concept so much that he simply had to include it in one of his movies. Number 9. One more famous Star Wars name has quite an interesting story behind it. The adorable R2-D2 was actually born during the production of another George Lucas movie, American Graffiti, in 1973. According to one urban legend, one of the American graffiti crew members asked from Lucas to retrieve reel number 2, which was located in the second dialogue track. During the post-production, Lucas ended up with the phrase, "Could you get R2-D2 for me?" The rest is R2-D2 history. Number 10. Here's quite a different story told about the Hollywood money, told by none other than George Lucas himself. In order to finance The Empire Strikes Back, George didn't want to rely on a major studio's financial support. He'd rather invest the money he earned from the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope, supported by a bank loan. Again, his risky move pays off beyond most optimistic hopes of A New Hope. In less than 3 months, the box office empire gave back all of George's invested money. When George became an empire himself, he expressed his gratitude by sharing the movie's profit with his workers, which is almost $5 in bonuses. Number 11. In the famous asteroid chase scene, one of the space rocks was actually a shoe. The Hollywood legend has it that Lucas was pushing the special effects guys to redo this scene so many times, they eventually became extremely frustrated and tired. One of them literally threw a shoe during filming. This was quite an unexpected special effect, right? Number 12. Did you think that Lucas was going to give up on an Oscar idea so easily? Well, George was so impressed by Muppet Frank Oz's portrait of Yoda, he spent thousands of dollars lobbying tirelessly for his Best Supporting Actor Oscar nomination. Back in those early special effects days, it was simply unthinkable for a puppeteer to be treated as a real actor. Have you heard that, all of you Avatars and Lord of the Rings creatures? Number 13. It was extremely hard to believe that Darth Vader was the number 3 villain on the AFI's 50 greatest villain lists of all time. Being an uncompromising Star Wars fan, you're probably wondering by now, who could dare to claim being the greatest villain of them all? Well, Dr. Hannibal Lecter, or Anthony Hopkins in The Silence of the Lambs, 1991, is the number 1 villain, according to this list. The position for number 2 is reserved for Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates, Psycho, 1960. Better to stop here, otherwise we're going to end up in the never-ending story questioning this list from A to Z. Number 14. All-terrain armoured transport vehicles, or shorter, the AT-ATs, borrowed their design of the walking machines we could see in the War of the Worlds. Their famous elephant-like walk is based on a serious study of African elephants' behaviour and movements. Number 15. It's not such a well-known fact that some of the Star Wars movies were filmed at the same time and in the same studio where Stanley Kubrick was making his masterpiece, The Shining, in 1980. Now, this movie legend becomes even more interesting. The author Stephen King himself paid a visit to the set a couple of times. Almost a decade later, we were all pleasantly surprised to find out that one of the characters in his novel, It, 1990, named Mr. Kirsch, actually sounded like Yoda. Number 16. One of the most iconic movie lines in modern Hollywood history, "No, I am your father," actually had the real-life top-secret status. Lucas was so worried about the potential script leaks that he included fake ones, such as, "Luke, you are your own father." We sure hope the actors had forgiven him that. Number 17. What about Darth Vader's name? Any idea? Well, you need a dictionary for this one. Darth is an obvious variation of dark, and Vader is a Dutch translation of father. Oh dear, if only we knew this a little earlier. Number 18. The Return of the Jedi was supposed to be the revenge of the Jedi. Yet, the movie producers were quite worried about the possible implications of the word revenge back in those days. The Wrath of Khan suffered the same revenge fate because its original name was The Revenge of Khan. George Lucas eventually got his revenge served in both box office and our hearts. Number 19. One more legendary director almost crossed paths with George Lucas. David Lynch got an offer to direct the last episode from the original Star Wars trilogy. He declined because he wasn't much of a fan of the so-called Lucas thing. The artistic and Hollywood irony was that his movie was the Dune 1984, one more SF classic. Number 20. Star Wars movies earned a lot, but they also cost a lot. The famous Jabba's scene involved 10 puppeteers and 9 mime artists, including 42 extras and 18 principals. It took more than 3 months to build an entire Jabba's scene, which weighed more than 2,000 pounds. At the end, George's bill for this scene was more than $500,000. Don't even try to adjust this amount for inflation. Number 21. The sound of the iconic Darth Vader's breathing was a result of an ingenious improvisation. The sound was recorded by placing a small microphone in a scuba regulator. Who could have thought that such an innocent thing could produce one of the most notorious and scariest sounds in Hollywood history? Number 22. The most interesting story about Star Wars character names is reserved for Obi-Wan Kenobi. The word Obi can be associated with native tribe sorcery located in South America and Africa. One refers to process of pale in color, which is a clear indication of declining ability of an aging Jedi. Finally, Ken is supposed to mean knowledge, mental perception, and understanding. So here's our free interpretation of Obi-Wan Kenobi's name: a magical, old-aged Jedi with a clear mental perception. Number 23. We have to mention main character's name one more time. Now that you've solved the puzzle of his last name, Luke is a Greek word for light. When you put it this way, it really sounds nice. A light walking the sky. Luke Skywalker. In addition, Luke has a link with George's last name we can't ignore, including reference to the biblical apostle Luke. Number 24. Have you ever wondered what happened with Vader's Force Ghost appearance after his death? Well, if you want to become a Force Ghost-like creature, this is something it has to be passed along from a Jedi who's already a Force Ghost. Here's the Star Wars Force Ghost line of succession. Obi-Wan got this ability from Yoda, who, on the other side, borrowed it from Qui-Gon Jinn. Unfortunately, Anakin was a Force Ghost for a short period of time. Number 25. May the Force be with you, Star Wars boys and girls, but this isn't the original variation of this immortal movie line. For what it's worth, this line is ranked as number 8 on the AFI's top 100 movie quotes of all time. Who cares how we're going to say it, as long as we know what it means. So, may the force of 25 facts be always with you.